Okay, let me show you how to work with red R3 files. So I already have my red files imported in. You should kind of know how to do that. But what we have to do a few things. Remember, working with raw files is a little different than just working with MP4 files or .mov files. We got to do a little bit of legwork here. So the first thing that we need to do is we want to sort of remove all the color that is sort of already added into the shot. So if I go to effects controls, what we want to do is we want to look at the master here. All right. Now, the image pipeline for red is IPP2. So we want to make sure that that is checked. You also have this denoise, and what this is going to do is it's going to try to remove any noise. It's going to try to calculate the noise and remove it. So we want to keep that checked also. Now down here, we have color space, and make sure that is on red, white, gamma, RGB, and we're working in log 3G 10. All right. Now with raw files, we also have the ability to change our exposure. So with red, we technically shoot on 800 ISO of 800. So that's what I want to keep this at. I can change this later on depending on if I want to do this, but I'm going to leave the ISO at 800, and we also have this exposure, but we're going to go into the color and work with that also. So you also have white balance where we can change that, but we also can change this in another place. So I'm going to leave that where it's at. Now down here at the bottom is what you end up needing to change here. So the color space, right now it's set to Rec 709. We want to change this to red, wide, gamma, RGB, and then we want to make sure that we're on log 3G10. So what this is going to do, if we look at it now, it looks totally different. We've pretty much wiped out the color that we have here. So now we're ready to go in and drag this here to our timeline. Now, of course, you could put your in and out points and all of that, but that's not the purpose of what we're doing here. So what we want to do is we want to go in and grade our footage. And remember that you need that IPP2 cubes that we got, and I got this directly from red.com, so you can get that. And then I have a package of Creative LUTs by lutifyme.com, and it's a great package as far as LUTs. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and play around with this. So let me go into my color tab here, just so we have this selected, and we're going to play around with this. Now remember, we need 4 adjustment layers, and the reason we do that is because we want to control the order in which this is calculated. So what we're going to do, make sure that you're in project and you click on the new item, and what we're going to do is we're going to add an adjustment layer, and it should be the width and size of your video. So let's click OK, and I'm just going to click and drag my first adjustment layer here, and we'll extend it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this 3 more times. So holding Option, I'm just dragging up, and I'm just going to keep adding 4 adjustment layers here. And there we go. We got 4 adjustment layers, and this is where we go in. So let's talk about the order. So the first adjustment layer, and I'm going to right click, and I am going to rename this, and we'll just call this basic. All right. So that first layer is for your basic color correction, and that's right here. So I can change things like my white balance, my exposure, my whites and blacks, my shadows. That's what I'm going to use that for. The second layer, on the other hand, this is for my creative. So these are this creative LUTs that I got from Lutify Me, um, that site. So, there's stuff for like Black Panther and Get Out and all these movies, Joker, all those cool things. So that's creative. And then the third one is for secondary color corrections. So we'll call this secondary. And I'm going to click OK. All right. And then the fourth is for my Rec 709, or I just like to call it log. So I'll just say log here, and we're good. So the first thing that we want to do is I want to make sure that I select, we're going to kind of work in a scattered order here, but I want to work with log. And what this is for that red color space. So if you remember, we went in and we can add a log. So that's from that IPP2 that was directly from red here. So what I can do is under the basic correction tab, we're going to input a LUT. And what I'm going to do is just browse. And let me find that IPP2. And we want to be in Rec 709. All right. Now, the way that I shoot, and you can test these out of how they work with you, but I actually like to shoot on medium contrast and then have the fall off as soft. So that's the one I'm going to choose, and let me click open. And you can see that we have some basic color here now. And now we can go in and adjust this. So we're finished with our first one here. All right. Now, the other thing that you can do is I'm going to go into my basic here. All right. So basic color correction. So make sure that you have that one selected. And in basic color correction, what I can do is, let's say I wanted to change the temperature of my shot a little bit. I can come in, if I wanted to cool it off, I'm going to warm it up just a little bit. And you can also play with the tint if you want to, but I'm going to leave that back at 0 here. All right. You also have access to exposure. So if I want to make this a little bit darker, I can touch that up. You also have contrast. So I can go in and make this a little bit more contrasty if I wanted to. It's giving it more of a television look. You can go in and play with your shadows. And you also can play with your whites and your blacks, but it's up to you how you want to color and what you want to do. So even if I wanted to go a little bit warmer, I could do that. And that's what that basic tab is for. You could also work in curves and adjust with scopes, but we're going to leave that out for now. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add my creative LUT here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click creative, and let's just make sure that we're in creative over here, and I'm going to browse. And if you remember, this is from that Lutify Me package. All right, so I'm going to go to Lutify Me, and let's go to Cube 3D LUTs, and then color grading LUTs. And you need ones that's specifically for red IPP2. If you do one that's like for Canna or something like that, it's not going to work. So let's go in and I'm going to choose red IPP2. And I'm going to go teal and orange. I'm going to click on teal and orange. And I'm going to grab this one here. Feel free to test any of these out. And if I click, you can see now that I get this teal and orange here. All right, so I like the way that is looking, so to speak. Not too crazy, not too off the wall, but I'm just trying to show you the process of how this works. All right, and then the last thing is your secondary. All right, so this is if I want to bring the colors of something out, even like skin tones, especially when I'm on close-ups where a LUT may make a person of color a little bit darker than they really are. So I can go in and use the eyedropper and touch on their skin and then bring those values down. So it's up to you how you decide to do it, but I'm gonna click on secondary. And let's just say I wanted to bring the color out of the browns a little bit or something like that. I'm just picking something here. So, because we really can't see his skin, he has a mask on. So I usually use this a lot with skin tones, but let's go into curves. And what we want to do is we want to mess with hue versus saturation. So I'm going to hit my eyedropper here. So okay, oops, didn't mean to do that. But let me click on the eyedropper again. There we go. And I'm going to click that spot. And you can see that now I can go in and touch those values up a little bit. And it can bring out the values in that. Now if I wanted to go in and add one more, you could. If I wanted to bring those up, I could go in and do that. And you see the effect a little bit better on skin tones and things like that. So if you are working with someone's skin tones and you need to touch those up, that hue and saturation is good enough. And then the last thing, let's say you wanted to crop this a little bit. That's the fifth layer, so I'll add another adjustment layer on top. And then I can go in and add a crop. So let me select my adjustment layer and then go to effects. And I'm just going to type in crop. And let's drag the crop to that fifth adjustment layer here. Alright, so now if I go to my effects controls, I'm going to crop this. So on the top, I'm going to do something like 12%. And then on the bottom, I'll also do 12%. Alright, so now taking a look at the final package, there you go. Now I didn't go too wild with this. I could have went even further, made it more cinematic if I wanted to by adjusting and using a different type of LUT. Feel free to work with those, but that is the way that you go about working with red raw files in Adobe Premiere Pro.